Welcome to Borgcast Original Series 3. Or what is it? 27.
24.
3.24?
Yes.
Yeah, it's gobshite.
Goodbye, folks.
I think, it's Anne-Marie and Peter, and I think the only thing I can say is it's a shame that the TV series went out on such a damp squib, but hey, at least you haven't got any more to watch.
Anyway, before we cover that, last but one time.
Oh.
This came in a couple of weeks ago about the Savage Curtain, which we covered previous but one episode. Yeah. I think it was from Martin Thompson, but apologies if I've got that wrong, because I very cleverly didn't make a note of who actually sent this in. But anyway, Abraham Lincoln in space is one of the most iconic images of TOS. So it was interesting to see this one, but the episode itself felt like something we had seen before. Like Llama, I went to a Rock Lord place when seeing Yarnik, but I also thought it was quite cool and a different look for a Trek villain. Murray's feedback made me think of this as a Taskmaster task, though. Part 1. Name a hero of yours. You have 10 seconds. Your time starts now. Part 2. You and your hero have to face off against a team of historical villains in a fight to the death. It's true. It's like, they do that thing where you don't know that you're being set up for another task that actually your choices might not help you with.
Yeah.
Last time we covered all our yesterdays, and we didn't watch Perry Mason. I'm sorry, I didn't have a chance. I hadn't realised they were like hour-long episodes, so at some point I might get round to it, but don't hold your breath on that one. And this week we are covering Turnabout Intruder. Yay. Or as the Japanese would have it, Transfiguration! Dangerous of Captain Kirk.
Fair enough. That the thing is, the downside with the Japanese episode title is it makes the episode sound way more interesting than it actually is.
It does.
Doesn't it?
Written by Arthur Singer.
Only Arthur Singer? What happened to the other half?
He was the bottom half as well, judging by this crap. He was a seasoned story consultant and, according to DC Fontana, didn't even know what the transporters were.
Wow.
Yeah. From a story by Gene Roddenberry. We should have known. The warning signs were written all over this. Yep, complete understanding of women. Definitely. Wow.
Oh, God.
Directed by Herb Wallerstein. Is obviously his last one, but number 4. He did The Tholian Web. God, talk about contrasts.
Yeah.
That Which Survives, which is the Purple Woman one. And Whom Gods Destroy. Hey-hoo. I mean, he's not to blame for this at all. And the direction has its moments, I think. It's one of the few good things about it. But the story is utter bobbins. Utter sexist bobbins at that.
Very.
What does your telepathic mind tell you now?
I believe you.
Agony will soon pass as it has for me. Spock, give it up.
I shall not withdraw a single charge that I have made, and I shall do everything in my power against you.
It is mutiny! Dr. McCoy. Sorry, but I'm going to have to take you off the case.
On this ship, my medical authority is final. I won't allow it.
It's done. Security guard! Attention all personnel. First Officer Spock has been placed under arrest on the charge of mutiny.
Then, Doctor, that's the time we move against him. We'll have to take over the ship.
We're talking about mutiny, Scotty. That's enough. We know what was said.
Enough to convict you of conspiracy with mutineers. And you're so charged. The sentence, death. Execution will be immediate.
Trigger warning for utter pile of crap.
So, you have the first in a number of captain's logs, but at least this makes sense.
Yes, it's actually made by the captain when he's able to make it.
More on that later.
Yes.
So, they've had a distress call from a group of scientists exploring a dead civilization. And it looks like they may have been exposed to radiation.
Was it the Tory party? The dead civilization.
Yeah. And it looks like they might have been exposed to radiation. So they go down to the planet and they find a guy I'm sure I've seen in something else, but it might have been Trek. Coleman, the guy who plays Dr. Coleman.
Dr. Coleman, Harry Landers. He had 2 different roles in episodes of Quincy M.E.
I don't think I've seen that.
He's in 71 episodes of Ben Casey.
Not convinced I've seen that either.
It's a 1960s hospital drama. He does doctors, basically.
Oh, okay.
But no, didn't find anything else we're likely to recognise him from. I mean, it's nice to see the Federation boiler suit get a final outing, but I hadn't realised he's got pockets as well. At one point, he puts the hyperspray in his pocket. It's like, oh, I didn't think pockets were a thing, but they are, apparently, in boiler suits anyway.
Okay, fair enough. And so it's him and Dr. Janice, whatever her name
Lester.
was. Dr. Janice Lester. And she's in a bed.
Played by Sandra Smith, who's in 2 different episodes of Hawaii 5-0, 3 different roles in Gunsmoke, 24 episodes of The Interns, another medical drama, and The Flying Nun! I expect that'll be the last time we'll be hearing that for a while. And she's still with us at the age of 88.
Oh. And as they're going to sort of check up on her, Spock picks up some faint life readings. And she makes this weird-ass noise. So Spock picks up these life readings. They're going to go and investigate, hoping that they might be able to save the scientist. But after she makes this weird-ass noise, Dr. Coleman says, oh, Kirk, you seem to be comforting her. Maybe you ought to stay. So he does, and it turns out that Lester is his ex.
Yes, yet another old flame.
But the problem there was women can't be captains.
Yes.
And so she couldn't possibly fit into her world, and there's no way they could have been together. So that's why she got angry or something. So then she sits bolt upright and she's fine, and she zaps him. And then she turns on the wall and pins him to it. And then she presses a button and they body swap.
Woo! All mystery gone out the episode straight away. Well done. I mean, the sound effect's a bit cheesy, to say the least. But the wall thing looks cool enough. And the lighting effect when it's switched on is nice as well. But yeah. Oh dear. Not a great start. And that's probably the best the episode has to offer as well.
Yeah, so then Kirk, but Janice in Kirk's body.
Yeah, I've gone through my notes with not Kirk and not Lester, basically. So not Kirk is Lester in Kirk's body.
Okay,
I don't know if that helps or not. It is not going to be easy to describe, is it? But there we are.
As Janice laughs.
Oh, Shatner's woman voice is amazing, isn't it? The set crew's nickname for this episode was Captain Kirk's Space Queen.
Wow.
It was a different time.
Yeah. Why didn't you kill me? You could have done it, but this, I'm not afraid to kill. Ha 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 ha. Soon you will know the indignity of being a woman.
It's better to be dead than to live alone as a woman. Roddenberry! Man, oh man.
Plenty of women are perfectly happy to live alone.
Oh.
I mean, if she's pissed off because she can't be a captain because she's a woman, then her issue's with Starfleet, not Kirk, surely.
Yeah.
And the idea that it makes her go mad and she has to body swap with Kirk and take revenge is also a bit ridiculous. I mean, you think about, like, women can't be the Pope. What they used to do in the olden days is bind their breasts and pretend to be a man. They must have surgeries for that by now. Could she not just pretend to be a bloke and then get into Starfleet and do it that way? And then after she's been the
let's
captain...
face it, we can do gender changes now.
Yeah, exactly. So they could have done them then. So that's what she should have done. She should have pretended to be a bloke and then gone, ha, 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 I was a woman all along. Deal with it, fuckos.
Plus, we later discover in Enterprise, and indeed Discovery, that there are women captains around at this time. So, yeah. I mean, admittedly, the imagination of Gene Roddenberry, who came up with the progressive future of Star Trek, didn't quite stretch to women being captains, apparently, because they're not suited. And if they do end up as captain, they go complete start raving mad. Oh, my life.
Well, see, women are supposed to have babies, you see.
Yes, and look after the house.
Yes.
Do the cooking. Woo!
The last episode, The Savage Curtain, wasn't good.
No, but it wasn't as bad as this.
But this seems to be undoing a lot of the Trek legacy.
Oh, just a bit. I mean, to be fair, they didn't realise this was going to be the last episode.
No, but it shouldn't have been any episode.
No, it shouldn't have been. You're quite right.
Should it? Of anything, ever. So, yeah, that's really awful.
Yes, it is all really awful.
And wrong. And then afterwards, Coleman comes in and looks suspiciously at Kirk, and it's clear that he's in on this and he's up for the sort of the whole body swap thing. So they've sedated Kirk in Janice's body, and they all end up beaming up.
Yeah, they put, for some bizarre reason, that they put not Lester on a trolley,
Stretcher.
A stretcher on wheels, which I don't think we've ever seen in this series. I mean, obviously we're not quite at the levels of Next Generation where everything's anti-grav, but I mean, there are anti-grav things in the original series, but I don't think we've ever seen a stretcher before, have we? But this is clearly a 1960s stretcher they're putting her on.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to beam her up. Burp. Anyway.
I don't know. Also, why doesn't the beaming sort it all out anyway?
Yeah, they could perhaps jiggle. Well, they don't know, do they? So they're not going to
Anyway.
try.
McCoy and Coleman disagree on the diagnosis, and it's because Coleman's like in on all of this. Although McCoy says it's not really, it doesn't go that far. They both agree it's radiation. The question is what type of radiation or whatever. They are actually closer than you might otherwise think. And then Not Kirk explains to McCoy that, Lester is important from his youth. And so McCoy's like, well, I didn't realise that, I'll take every care, which is presumably Lester trying to cover all the bases and not possibly be accused of not giving Kirk in Lester's body every chance of life.
And how are they not already? How is McCoy not noticing that Kirk is not normal? Because
well, no, he does.
Obvious.
Well, it is, but they've all been supposedly exposed to this radiation, even if not in high doses on the planet. So initially, he can write it off, but it should have been getting better, not worse. Mm-hmm. And then you have Scotty saying that Dr. Lester is lucky to have escaped, and you find out that she killed all her staff. Have we ever given an explanation as to why?
In order to get the Enterprise there, I guess. So It was an emergency. Yeah, I mean, she does not come across well, does she? But it's been written by Gene Roddenberry, so what are you going to do?
And she's like, oh, you've got to murder Kirk. And he's like, I'm not going to be a murderer. And then she's like, well, you are complicit already. I bet you still won't do it or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he almost does it on the planet, smothering not Kirk in Lester's body, but dear, it's so difficult to describe this episode. But anyway, then Lester in Kirk's body gets interrupted. And then he can't. But later on, not Kirk can't do it either. So,
yeah.
Presumably, because you're supposed to infer from that somehow she still loves him or something.
I don't bloody know. And then Not Kirk says he trusts McCoy, and then says, but then Coleman says, look, if you don't follow my instructions, then Lester's body could die, let's put it that way. So then it's just like, so Kirk then makes this show of sort of, oh right, you've got to it's got to be Coleman's patient, McCoy, you're off the case. And McCoy's like, you can't do that. And he's just kind of like, I just did no.
Yeah.
So then somehow Lester in Kirk's body is doing a captain's log. Now, if this is because it's using, say, you can do a captain's log using Kirk's retinal scan. They do a lot of retinal scans, don't they, in the movies and that. Fine. This then makes sense in terms of how, but why? She's admitting her guilt on record. How stupid.
Yeah. I mean, A, there's no way that they ought to be able to do this, and B, yeah, they're just admitting to... I mean, I know there's a thing where captain's logs aren't supposed to be open, or personal logs aren't supposed to be opened, are they?
But she doesn't say personal log, she says captain's log.
Yeah, so it's an official thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just makes no sense.
So the idea that she can do it because she's in Kirk's body, I can understand, but why? Yeah. She's gone through all her life so far without making captain's logs about all the stuff going on in her head. You'd have thought she could cope without this one. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so that makes no bloody sense. And then Not Kirk says that they've got to go to this particular colony, which means diverting from their existing mission. And then it's like, well, hang on, that's not the quick... Starbase 2 is en route. And it's like, yeah, but it's going to take longer to get there. And then it's sort of really sort of smilingly is sort of... well, those Felicities aren't much use if she's dead, ha ha ha. And you're just like, yeah, people should be knowing by now that this is not.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, if we go at maximum warp, then we can, Starbase 2 is still possible. And this colony place is just too primitive. It isn't going to work. It's just like, no, that's what we're doing. And then you have Notahura.
Yes, Lieutenant Angela Martine, played by Barbara Bodalvin, who was in Balance of Terror as the crewmate who was due to marry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And also in Shore Leave. Although her character was due to have a different name until the crew on set realised she'd been in the series before. She was also in a deleted scene from Space Seed. She was in 59 episodes of Calling Dr. Gannon, which was, guess what? A medical drama.
Yeah.
In fact, she has loads of roles in various series as nurses, basically. She gets rather typecast as that, so she presumably is enjoying not being a nurse at the moment. She's at comms in this because Nichelle Nichols had a singing engagement, and I can't blame Nichelle for ducking out of this dreck.
No, not at all. Because then she gets asked, what's your last episode of Star Trek? And it's not this.
Yes.
And then it's like, well, we're going to have a change of plan. Then it's like, well, Starfleet have to be notified. And Spock's like, well, it's like, if you're doing your job, you'd have done it. And it's like, well, normally the captain liaises directly with command, and I thought it might be interference. And you can tell that Spock is like, yeah, this is not right. You're not right. Then you find out from McCoy that Coleman was incompetent and removed from his post. And it's like, oh, Kirk's like, yeah, but what? Not Kirk. He's like, oh, yeah, but people, that happens all the time with political appointments. People can be promoted and demoted. And it's just like, yeah, that's a rubbish excuse, though.
Yeah, that's Nigel Farage levels of explanation, isn't it?
Yeah. And then McCoy says that, look, you've got to have a examination. And Kirk's like, why? And McCoy's like, well, we've been down on the planet. We've been exposed to this radiation. And you're not quite behaving right, so I've got to make sure. And it's not me that's saying this, Starfleet regulations say so. That's how it's got to be. Meanwhile, Starfleet Command are requesting more info about why they're not going to meet their scheduled rendezvous on time. And then in Janice's body, Kirk wakes up and requests McCoy. But Coleman says that she's paranoid and gets Chapel to administer a sedative.
Which looks like a roller cola.
It does. And then she's doing... Well... Kirk in Janice's body is doing a captain's log.
Yeah.
And I understand...
How is that even possible?
No, I understand why, but here it's the how that makes no
sense.
Because, as far as the ship's going to be concerned, this is Dr. Janice Lester, who isn't the captain. So how is somebody not the captain doing a captain? It's just ridiculous.
I don't know. They don't think these things through, do they?
And also,
it's just got to the point where captain's logs are just such...
It's a narrative device, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the way they do things. So even when it's not possible to do them, they still do them because that's what we do. That's how we go out of, we start each act, is have a captain's log. Even when there's absolutely no way for the captain to have made the log.
No. And also, whereas arguably in later eras of Trek, the comm badge, you might argue, is recording a log. At this point, comm badges are just fucking shiny shit sewn onto a uniform.
Yeah, that's not.
They're not holding anything to record a log into like they normally.
They haven't got a pad, which is what the big pads that they have in the original series. Is how they record logs. Yeah, no. Normally handed to them by a yeoman. I mean, what yeoman's going to pass supposedly Janice Lester a thing to record a log? Yeah.
So you can have other people recording a log. You could have a science officer's log or a chief medical officer's log.
But she's not even a member of the crew. So
no, she's not. So where's this coming from? Stupid fucking gobshite.
We have a scene where McCoy and Spock share their concerns about Not Kirk, and you're thinking, how's it taken half the episode to get to this? Not Kirk enters sickbay, shortly followed by Not Lester. Not Kirk judo chops her, which should have been the last straw for people realising what has happened. And it kind of is for Spock, because he makes reference to it later.
But also the look on McCoy's face.
Yeah, you should have said something at this point as well. She orders Not Lester to be put in security isolation. Spock tries to see her, but Galloway, the security dude, initially won't let him in and insists on accompanying the first officer, which is bizarre.
Well, I kind of get that, because Spock is saying, when have you ever known this order apply to the senior officers? And he's like, yeah, you got a point. And he says, but I think maybe I should accompany you. And I think, I think that's fair enough. If he's like, well, I'm not quite sure what to do, the best thing, I shouldn't leave them alone. I get that.
Well, there's no reason to not trust the first officer at this point. I mean, later on there is, but even more bizarre is the fact that Galloway was killed in season 2's The Omega Glory.
Oh, he's dead.
Back from beyond the grave.
Wow.
The actor had been recast as a different named character in Day of the Dove. This series can be quite a mess continuity-wise, can't it?
Yeah.
A topless Shatner is being tested in sickbay on the leg presses, but McCoy also wants to check his mental state, so shines a purple light on him.
Ah, yay, purple light.
Is he attractive now, Anne-Marie?
No.
No, not even in purple light.
No.
Wow. Spock interrogates Not Lester, who says the equipment used for the body swap was invented centuries ago. Quite how he'd know that, I don't know. Spock is sceptical, but all she needs to do is tell him something only the real Kirk would know. And in a rare bit of continuity, not Lester makes reference to the events in the Tholian web and the empath, which should be enough.
Yeah.
But the Vulcan claims the events were recorded, so could have become known by Lester. I mean, how, I don't know, but unless, Captain's logs are publicly read. But then not Kirk is in trouble if that's the case, isn't it? Tell Spock about the birthmark is what I wanted to yell at this point. Anyway, instead we're back to Route 1 with the Vulcan mind melding along with the music.
Well, to be fair, at least that's... You can understand that not Kirk is like, how on earth can I do this? Well, you're going to know the truth if you mind meld with me. I get that.
But apparently that isn't good enough evidence.
Well, I get that because Spock hasn't had an easy ride in Starfleet. So if this was a Vulcan ship, probably it would be. But I get that
You'd
actually...
have thought after all these adventures where, when Kirk hasn't saved a day, Spock has saved a day, they'd be trusting him by now, but okay. I mean, the whole reason why he can't present it as evidence is because we've got a third of the episode to go yet, and, that would be the end of the episode, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So,
oh no, the doggy means I can't get my beer.
Oh, it's a tragedy.
Right, hang on. Can I use my good leg to move the table closer?
You win a can of beer. Well done. Despite being mightily outranked by the blooming first officer, no less, Galloway won't let Spock take not Lester.
Yeah, but again, that's a security officer
and
doing their job.
accuses him of being mad, which is absolutely ridiculous, to be fair.
That is ridiculous, but...
Spock neck pinches Galloway, but not before the lieutenant has warned the guard outside, who hails Not Kirk. Arriving with more guards, Not Kirk announces to the ship that Spock is to be placed under arrest and charged with...
Mutiny! Deliberate, vindictive, insane at his base. But mutiny is charged, and encouragement of mutiny. Dr. McCoy, Mr. Scott, you heard it?
Oh dear. Not Kirk makes a captain's log, again, where they reveal that having passed McCoy's test, they have complete confidence in their con. Again, they got to hope nobody reads these things. The fact the rest of the crew are being idiots must help too, eh? So we have Scotty doubting Spock's mind melds, despite knowing the Vulcan for 3 years now. Spock points out how suspicious it is that Not Lester is being kept locked away. Overconfident Not Kirk agrees to them becoming a witness. Despite the Not Captain looking unnaturally smug, McCoy claims he's the same as he ever was.
Same as it ever was. Same as it ever was. Same as it ever was. Same as it...
We both went there.
Yeah. But, do you not have eyes and ears, dude?
Oh, God.
Apparently the purple light never lies, as Bucks Fizz never sang. Not We'll find some entertainment somewhere. Not Lester proclaims they are not Kirk, which is confusing. But the actual Kirk is held prisoner in her body. Again, behaving completely unlike himself. Not Kirk voices the idea he's actually Lester. And the security guys all laugh. Well, clearly a decent IQ is not required of red shirts. Raving at this point, Not Kirk suggests Spock is gunning for the captaincy. Then tries to mollify him by dropping the charges, but the Vulcan ain't for turning. Stomping off, presumably for a pee break or something, I don't know. Not Kirk demands a vote on Spock's mutiny when he returns.
The thing is, I know that a lot of things make me think of snooker. But this behaviour is like Ronnie O'Sullivan or someone when he's just like, he's lost a frame and he's had enough and he just puts his cue on the table and storms off to go and give himself a talking to. Right.
The difference being that Ronnie O'Sullivan isn't in being inhabited by some crazy woman.
I presume not, although it would explain a lot.
Scotty has finally realised it's not Kirk. Huzzah. Took long enough. But bizarrely, McCoy won't go against his tests. Purple never lies. Scott suggests they vote against Kirk, and then he'll never accept it, and that's the moment for mutiny! Which is logical, I guess. Yeah. But it turns out not Kirk was recording their conversation. Somehow, where has he hidden the microphone? And charges them with mutiny! And demands the death penalty. Oh. Finally, Sulu and Chekhov say something, having been silent muppets up till now, pointing out there isn't the death penalty anymore, except for breaking General Order 4.
What's General Order 4?
Well, it's just a bit confusing. Because court-martial in Season 1, it was established the only crime that permitted the death penalty was General Order 7, landing on Talos 4. And I can only think that somebody got their wires crossed somewhere, was thinking of that, and got the number wrong.
Oh, I see.
But that's the least of this story's problems, let's face it.
Yeah.
Not Kirk orders them to go to their posts, and eventually they do. I mean, they don't straight away, but oh dear. They express their doubts to each other on the bridge. Sulu finally announces he'll resist security if needs be. All the crew refuse to follow Kirk's orders when he gets back and he throws a tantrum.
Oh, this is just awful.
And then we get our last dose of shacking, everybody, because I don't think he shacks in the animated series because they don't move that much facially. And Spock does some mind-meldy thing with Not Lester that's never actually explained.
No.
That enables actual Kirk to get a brief moment of control. Not Kirk goes to Dr. Coleman to tell him the transfer is weakening. The Not Captain tells him he needs to kill Not Lester. Then Not Kirk throws a wobbly. We get yet another flashback of the transference, which have cropped up all the way through the story pointlessly. And they swap back, with Lester crying, "She'll never be the captain." Dr. Coleman says he'll take care of her. Oh. Kirk finishes with, "Her life could have been as rich as anyone's if only." If only what? Well, in the James Blish adaptation, which was often based on earlier script drafts, Spock finishes the sentence with, "If only she'd been able to have taken pride in being a woman." In other words, not worried herself about captaining a starship and settled with a life following men's orders. Yeah. As I say, some of the awfulness of this is undone by having women starship captains already in the universe at this point in Enterprise and Strange New Worlds, but boy, does this attitude to women date the original series so badly.
And they should reform.
Mm-hmm. Bizarre end to an episode, and even bizarrer ending to the series, although that wasn't planned, because the series was cancelled with more stories planned, including one to be directed by one W. Shatner.
Oh, God.
Yeah, can you imagine how good that would have been?
Oh, don't.
I mean, it would have just been all Kirk, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I don't think I really need to ask this question, but classic or TOS?
Absolutely. It's not even TOS. It's a fetid jizz tissue.
FJT. That's not quite as pronounceable unless you catch your willy in your zip when you're zipping it up.
But at least TOS is an action. This isn't even an act. This is the discarded result of a TOS.
It's crap.
It's really awful. It's bad. It doesn't make any fucking sense. It has a load of shacting and it's horrifically sexist. And it makes nearly all of the crew out to be complete
idiots.
Bloody idiots as well.
The plot is way too contrived to stretch out a non-mystery because they reveal what happens right at the beginning to the end of the hour. Shatner's OTT performance is unsubtle even for him, and that's saying something.
Yeah.
Which also holds the story below the waterline because everybody should have guessed straight away something was amiss.
Yeah.
And it's a big pile of sexism, basically.
Yep.
It's 60 minutes of sexist claptrap. How appropriate for the ending of season 3, you could argue, I suppose.
It's an incel wank stain, isn't it?
Yes, it's one of those. But, no, I can't believe anybody would like this, but here we go. Jeff Hyman, the worst episode of the series.
Yep.
I love those old scientists era. It's my comfort show, and I can watch just about any episode again and again. Of course, that has required a certain level of self-delusion to ignore a myriad of poorly aged racist and sexist ideas that I've excused based on the general good intent of the whole, excuse the pun, Enterprise. However, blatant sexism is so baked into the core premise of Turnabout Intruder that it's impossible to ignore. It's especially galling as it's in complete contradiction to the very first episode of Star Trek, where Number 1 takes command of the ship without anyone batting an eye.
Yeah. Shatner
really throws the ham levels up to 11 too. It's so sad TOS ends with such a wet fart. We've heard too from Christian and Ori. From memory, Turnabout Intruder is a fitting ending to TOS, but for the wrong reasons. Partly for Shatner's over-the-top performance as Janice Lester piloting Kirk's body, but mainly as one last reminder of the horrible misogyny throughout the series and from Gene Roddenberry in particular. In fact, when Mike and Dan covered it on Edge of Forever, Mike couldn't give it a casual sexism count because its outright hatred, rather than just dismissal of women, is so central to its story. He's quite right.
Yeah.
Like the warp speed limit in the last season of TNG, women being barred from captaining starships in the 23rd century is a conceit that was thankfully ignored and contradicted throughout the remainder of the franchise. I remember the discussion between Bones and Scotty about deposing the possessed Kirk being the best scene of the episode, although even it featured one of them referring to her as hysterical, so it can't redeem or save the story. Keep up the excellent and often side-splitting work, and looking forward to your coverage of the animated series, of hopefully season 3 of Strange New Worlds. Yeah, well, we'll wait.
See what that's like.
See what it's like, and then we'll let you know whether we're covering it, because it could go either way. And of Babylon 5, of which I'm mainly in the Ian position of my life. Oh, that would take too long to explain, but it basically means he's never seen it before. Or indeed the Donnie position, for I have no point of reference outside.
I have no frame of reference.
Yeah, I got that one. Outside of the first 2 episodes. Oh, well, you've got a journey then. Excellent.
Wow, cool.
We will really look forward to hearing what you think if you've not seen it before, for the most part. P.S. I'm not that familiar with the A-Team. Wow, how's that possible? But wouldn't Animal be the ideal Muppet to play Howling Mad Murdoch? No, because Murdoch's got a bit more intelligence to him than dear old Animal has. But anyway, we've heard too from Boss. I may have to renounce my 40-odd-year friendship with him if he likes this one. Well, we finally made it to the end of the original series, and it's not going out on a high.
Good.
Ooh, understatement. This episode contains a lot of the things that were bad about the series when it's centred mostly on Kirk. I've seen plenty of films and programmes that include body swapping, and they require a level of acting that Shatner doesn't possess to make them believable. There were some good scenes involving the other senior crew members as they debate whether to mutiny or not. They would have carried more weight if the central premise wasn't so daft.
Yeah.
The explanation as to why Janice Lesser hated Kirk so much didn't make a lot of sense. It might have worked better as a comedy episode. It was good that most of the crew, minus Uhura, were involved, and I'd like to give a big shout out to Lieutenant Galloway, who made a remarkable recovery from being killed in the previous season. I got better. Sadly, his brain did not get resurrected with him. I'd say this was a 5 out of 10 episode, which makes it about average for season 3. I think you're being very generous.
Very, very generous.
The season had a lot of good ideas, but they were mostly poorly executed. Yeah, this was partly down to budget, I suspect. Well, only partly, to be honest. My thoughts on TOS as a whole were that it was good to rewatch it all, but I was disappointed to find it wasn't as good as I remembered it. Sorry, mate. Maybe some things should be left in the past. I probably would have thought a lot more of it if I was watching it in the 1960s. Yeah, maybe. Well, it certainly would have been much more different back then, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you, Bo, for reading out my ramblings for the past 80 episodes. There we go. And no, it's awesome. It's been good to hear from you.
Yeah, good to hear from you.
Yeah, I mean, immediately, in terms of shows that did body swap episodes better, needless to say, Red Dwarf springs to mind.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, that's another classic that I might have to rewatch soon.
Yeah, I love that one with the Rimmer one. They're both so good, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. I mean, admittedly, Chris Barry was an impressionist, so that helps.
Yeah, but...
Craig...
Yeah, he does a good impression as well, Craig Charles, so it works very well. I think, as well, body swaps work better when you know both as a premise, when you know both of the characters, and here Lester is an unknown. Yeah. And I think that lets the story down as well.
But it's got to be an evil turn, hasn't it? So they couldn't use one of the regulars for that.
No, but they could have brought a Klingon in or something that we'd come across before.
Oh, Harry Mudd. That would have been much. They could have made it a comedy episode. Yeah, I would have bought that. Harry Mudd trying to, swapping bodies with Kirk in order to use the Enterprise to make loads of money. That I want to see that show now. That would have been good.
Yeah.
Anyways, we'll find out what Sampo and Yonna thought.
Hello.
Hello.
So we just watched Turnabout Intruder. Yeah, well, I think it was a really sort of thrilling, exciting episode. Lots of intrigue. There's like mutiny and paranoia and who to trust and all that, and would have been an all-time classic if it weren't for the really, really horrible way it depicted women. I mean, this could have been a very good episode, and there were small parts of it that were, but we couldn't go a minute without pointing out that women are hysterical or they're emotional and walk funny or something, or a dangerously high degree of shacking. So, did you like the episode?
It was utterly horrible, terrible.
Yeah, and that's why
it's not worthy of any comments at all. I think I'm being too serious, but I probably hated it a little.
I guess the Japanese title for the episode is "And That's Why You Can't Have Women Commanding Spaceships."
Or you just let women do what they want so that they don't have to make these plots to break glass ceilings.
I think in every other Star Trek show there are women captains, but I can't remember. I might be wrong. I'm not that familiar with the original series, but I can't remember a single woman captain. So
I think Uhura might have had a funny day at work if she'd be there, but we didn't see her.
yeah, it's a shame. It's the last episode, and it would have been nice if she had been there as well. I mean, of course, they didn't know that it was the final episode, so but never mind. Or maybe they knew in practice, but it wasn't supposed to be a sort of series finale or anything.
So I think the more interesting question would be if you would wake up in, so to say, in my body, what would you do?
Well, you mean after the first and most obvious thing? I don't know, panic a little, I guess.
Do you think that Kirk wandered to her when she was menstruating? Because it sure looked that Kirk was suffering some pain.
Yeah, some women's trouble or something. Am I right?
It's not trouble, just natural part of life.
I was being facetious.
So you know.
I can't win, can I?
No, you cannot.
Okay, but one thing, of course, it's almost annoying, but usually when there's a body swap thing or something, the person who's trying to prove it is also like, and I'm thinking, Kirk was calm and measured all the time. I mean, Kirk in the woman's body. But in this case, it was like almost more annoying because it just sort of attenuated the fact that the woman in the man's body was all emotional and the man in the woman's body was sort of calm and measured.
Maybe emotions are parts of our bodies as well.
Well, hormones and all that, so technically.
But they are also part of our thinking and part of who we are.
I mean, they had the strange emotion measuring machine they've never used before. We were both sure that, okay, there's a woman in Kirk's body, the emotionometer will show it. But for some reason, it didn't work. I mean, if it can sort of measure the emotional state of a person, or I think brainwaves would have made more sense, it should have showed different. Why was it the same? It wasn't explained.
That was weird. But if it would have worked, they wouldn't have to have this ridiculous court drama.
To the conference room. Play the tape.
They did play the damn tape.
Yes.
I don't know why.
They missed a trick and didn't take 5 minutes in overlapping some brain waves on the screen again. I mean, in this episode, it would have made sense. Well, but never mind. I have a suggestion. I mean, I think this episode was so bad and offensive that I suggest that we just don't record any feedback for the original series ever again. Is that okay for you?
Yes.
Okay. So we won't be saying see you next time. We'll say good day, sir. I say good day.
Yes, thank you for the lovely trip to the world of Star Trek, told by Jonna in her own body with her mind, which is woman's.
Peace out.
Wow, there we go. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. No, you're right. It doesn't make any sense that the purple machine
failed.
Yes.
Purple is infallible, clearly.
Yes.
Yeah. And unfortunately, what they were trying to say is, look what happens when women break glass ceilings. They go mad, which, it's not good. Not good at all. But I just love the fact that Jonna was reduced to just disgusted grunts for most of the first half of that feedback. It was like, yeah, I feel your pain. Yeah. And there are indeed no captains in the original series. Abu! The animated series is a lot better, though. Honest. Yes. A lot weirder, but a lot better. There's not this level of sexism. In fact, there's one episode in particular where I'm not giving anything away, but things get turned around quite spectacularly.
And whereas the episodes I remember are just weird as fuck. And I'm not saying anymore because I don't want to spoil it. I want people who haven't ever watched it before to have the reaction I did the first time I saw it and go, what the fuck? And then laugh, because that's what I did. It's fun. And I think that Lower Decks is a worthy successor to the animated series, because the animated series still feels like Trek, but it's a bit mad and it's fun. And I think that's a fair description.
There are definite parallels to be made, and we shall be making them, I'm sure.
We will. But I'm looking forward to the animated series.
Yes. Okay, we hear next from the Llama God.
Oh dear. I bet he's not a happy bunny.
Lamgaslag, Scotty, Fixie Coig, Yayig. Man, I feel like a woman. Here we are then, we're at the end, and I think maybe here with a bit more a sense of relief than we did over on the recently finished Lower Decks as well. So yeah, so here we go then, one last time with my two favourite catchphrases. Well, this episode had the germ of a good idea, didn't it? But ruined slightly somewhat by the fact that it was made in the 1960s. Okay, yeah, so what is the idea? The idea is the body swap thing, and the core of that is the fact that it's Kirk and Dr. Janice Lester that swap places, and there's the potential for a great story here, where you have a man encountering the prejudices that women face constantly throughout every aspect of their lives. The fact that he would have to then go through that to prove himself again and to get his actual bodily identity back, that would have been a really interesting and compelling story with a lot to say. I'm not going to add especially now. I mean, yeah, it seems to be a universal thing, really, and it would have really applied in the 60s, but obviously they weren't thinking like that. But because it's the 60s, the whole idea is distilled to the fact that you can tell a man from a woman, because it's the women that become hysterical, isn't it? Because men never act on their emotions doing crazy, reckless things. Do they? Do they? He says, looking at, well, basically history of the world in general. So yeah, that is a big disappointment. That's a really big wasted opportunity. Again, shouldn't be surprised because it's the 60s, but yeah, there's just so much sexism in this one. The fact that when Lester is in Kirk's body, Kirk, who they think is Kirk, it's confusing this. I'm intrigued to see how you end up covering this one, given you've got to describe each character twice. But yeah, when Kirk is sent for his exam because he's becoming a bit emotionally unstable. Yeah, because he's a woman, is he? He's a woman. Yeah, is that women are emotionally unstable? Is that it? Is that what you're saying? I mean, yeah, you probably were, but you weren't you? It's uncomfortable. I mean, you could make the argument that Lester was herself not entirely stable, you could say, because she was obviously bent on revenge, and that she doesn't really speak for all women. It was just really her as an individual, but also that's kind of not the way it's presented here either. So yeah, that is unfortunate. I'd say the episode isn't really badly directed per se, but the problem is, because we learn right at the start what's happened, you do spend the entire episode waiting for the rest of the crew to catch up and figure out what's going on. Even with Spock, by the time that he got to decided that he would use his telepathy to figure out whether Lester was telling the truth or not, and that she was actually Kirk. Like, yeah, come on, we've done this before. Come on, Spock, just use a bloody mind meld. Come on, get on with it. So yeah, it does take way too long to actually get to the point, unfortunately. And besides, the crew should not be too surprised by this scenario. This isn't the first time there's been an evil Captain Kirk on board, so this is like the third time at least. Yeah, I know an enemy within he's split into two parts. It wasn't quite as clear cut as good and bad, but you know what I mean. They should have been familiar with this, so yeah. On the plus side of this episode, most of the crew get something to do, being involved in the court-martial as they are. I know that Shiloh and Chekhov don't get a lot to do, but they do the nice little bit of resistance against Lester Kirk and his ridiculous orders, and their scenes when they're sat basically just munching popcorn at the court-martial is just great. Everyone else gets a good showing as well. It's just a real shame that Uhura wasn't in it at all, because that would have rounded things off nicely. I guess she was filming something else somewhere and they didn't actually know this was going to be the final episode of Star Trek ever. Certainly some issues with continuity, given Lester's comment that Starfleet isn't for women. I mean, ignoring the fact that we have Captain Giorgio in Discovery and the fact that that universe doesn't seem to have a problem with women at all. I mean, obviously that was made later, so it's going to be more reflective of the times. But we've also seen female admirals as well. I guess it could have been seen as a comment on the general sexism that women face when they're trying to serve in a quasi-military organisation like Starfleet. Again, that would have been a really interesting idea to have explored, but we don't do this here because women are just hysterical, right? And yes, as series finales go, this isn't the strongest by any means. I mean, sure, they didn't know that it was going to be the finale, and TV didn't really do that back in the day either. They just kind of stopped and that was it. But on the plus side, one of the main themes of this episode is that Kirk spends most of the episode inside a woman, and if that's not thematic of Star Trek as a whole, then I don't know what it is. Speaking of which, that gives me a nice segue into finally coming back to the Kirk snog count, because we've reached into the series now. Don't actually know what he gets up to in the animated series. I'll be keeping an eye on that one as well. But as it stands at the end of the live action series, Kirk has snogged 16 different women. That's 16 women out of 79 episodes, which gives him a hit rate of 20% of the episodes he basically hits on a woman. So yeah, maybe the idea that Kirk is a more sensitive type is out of the window ever so slightly, especially given how he's been portrayed by Shatner's acting choices in the last couple of episodes. Doesn't really put him in the best of light. But it is interesting, there's only 3 snogs in season 1, there's 6 in season 2, and a whole 7 in season 3. Is the fact that, during the first year, this wasn't meant to be a part of Kirk's identity. He wasn't meant to be that kind of womanizer, but it's something that's grown into the role as the series gone on, and I don't know whether that's due to pressures from Shatner and his ego. I don't know. It's an interesting one, really. But yes, here we are then at the end of Star Trek. I will say thank you for covering this, because as I said right at the start, I've never actually watched the original series all the way through. I'd seen a fair few, but not all of them, and especially not most of season 3. So yeah, this has been a great journey to actually go on. Will I do it again ever? Probably not. I mean, there's a few episodes that I'll happily go and rewatch, like Balance of Terror, Amok Time, City on the Edge of Forever, Trouble with Tribbles, plenty of others. There are some good episodes in here, but there's a lot that's just a bit of a slog to get through. And part of that is just because of the difference in the way that TV's made, and part of that is just because of all the sexism and the racism, which, but it was the 60s, and it's soon to be not. So thank you for covering this, thank you for giving me the opportunity, and thank you for taking my feedback. So, as ever, I've been looking forward to finding out what everyone else made of this masterpiece. I hope everybody's not too terrified with the prospect of the animated series, because I'm certainly looking forward to that, because I haven't seen a single one of those. And until next time, glory to you and your cast.
Somebody in the Ian position when it comes to the animated series. Brilliant, although I suspect that he won't be the only one.
No. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much we're supposed to think that not Kirk is emotionally unstable because Janice is unstable. I honestly think Roddenberry wrote this as not Kirk is unstable because woman. Yeah,
knowing what I know about Roddenberry, sadly so.
Guy was a cunt.
Yeah. I mean, again, Llama God dreamt up a much better episode.
Yeah.
But there we go, which could have explored, what it really was like being a woman. But no, that's not where they were going with this. Yes, the crew take far too long to catch up. But then again, if they hadn't, then there's nothing else happening in this episode, so...
Yeah, but then what you were saying about all the other times that they've seen Kirk be bad and they've tried to do something about it, just it made me think of Scotty's speech when he says, I've seen Kirk do this, Kirk do that.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, and you intervened then, or somebody did.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you letting this happen for?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah. And just pointing out, Janet Lester's an old flame. He must have kissed her at some point, so all right, we don't get any snogs on the screen, but yes, this is yet another woman that he's had involvement with. So it's not just the kisses, it's the other stuff as well.
And it's also, again, I reckon this is Roddenberry. They broke up and she can't handle it. It's the whole, I can't have Kirk, so I'm going to go... Do you know what I mean? It's just like... Because incel God's gift idea, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yes, I'm not entirely surprised that you're not going to go back to another rewatch. I'm not sure. Maybe at some stage it's going to be a long way down the line, but there are certain episodes, certainly. And I do think the first season, particularly... Whilst there are a couple of very rocky moments, there are also some real moments of promise of what the series could have been. It's just, particularly season 3 is not great.
No.
Not great.
I
say what you like about Enterprise, but the second they depict the second ever starship captain in Starfleet as a woman.
Yeah.
So that at least goes some way to trying to mend the damage that this rubbish has done. But yeah,
I could see me potentially watching the odd episode of this again. You would have to pay me money to get me to do a full rewatch.
Yeah, it's certainly not going to happen anytime soon. You can.
Well, you might, because that's what you're like.
No, I'm not sure I want to do a whole rewatch.
No.
Anytime soon.
But the problem is that half the time with you,
for a decade, maybe.
Half the time with you, love, we start a rewatch, and I'll be like,
How are we doing our Deep Space? Have we skipped any episodes of the Deep Space? We have, haven't we? I think.
I'm not sure. We definitely have with our current rewatch through of Doctor Who. We've skipped something.
Yeah. I'm sure there was one we skipped Deep Space. We're both like a few minutes into the episode went, oh no, I can't cope with this.
Possibly. Yeah, there's not many, but there are some. But quite often when you're doing a rewatch, you're very insistent on watching.
I'll tell you which one it was that always gets our blood pressure up. It's that awful one with Sisko and O'Brien, because it's always O'Brien that gets tortured on that planet with that religious nut job. Yes, we skipped that one.
We just went, no.
No. There's no, you can't make me watch this again. Yeah. Only a podcast can make me watch that episode again.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. And the thing with that is that you've got to know that there aren't many episodes like that. Which we did when we did the Deep Space Nine coverage. We knew there weren't many episodes like that.
I tell you what, as we're discovering, we're quite a way through season 3. Every story in season 3 is a banger.
Good. Yeah,
it's incredible.
Well, apart from that shit with Bareil, wasn't that season 3?
Oh yeah, that might have been the letdown. Yeah,
that was bollocks.
Well, at least he dies. Yeah. There's a happy ending. Spoilers. We've already covered it, so it doesn't count as a spoiler.
But what I was going to say is that we know going into the animated series in Babylon 5 that there might be. I genuinely
and actually, even in that bad episode with Bareil, Kai Wynn is worth watching
Yeah.
just for how evil she
Yeah.
is.
So I don't know that it's necessarily the case with the animated series because I can't remember it enough. But I remember that overall I enjoyed it.
I think my memory is my only problems with the animated series are that sometimes it just goes crazy nuts too far.
Yeah.
And it therefore doesn't feel like Star Trek. Whereas there aren't any episodes that make me think, oh, this is horribly sexist, this is horribly racist. But I could be wrong, because it has been a little while. But the problems of the animated series are just
different problem.
pale into comparison when it comes to this. Blimey.
But the reason that we don't know yet if we're covering Strange New Worlds is it's one thing to watch a series that's mostly good with the odd bad episode, and it's quite another.
Well, again, it was the second season of Picard that taught us that lesson. Don't commit yourself to something you don't think you can get through in all good conscience, because you don't want to hear us grumbling every time.
And you don't
occasionally is okay.
Yeah, occasionally is. I think
occasionally giving something a good kicking is quite good for the soul.
It's quite good fun, but it's not fun also for us to do it.
Well, not on a regular basis.
Occasionally, fine.
You want to know that there's some hope of a better story next. That's the thing. So you can cope with a Turnabout Intruder if there's an Enterprise incident, for instance. Sadly, they didn't come in that order, but never mind.
You can cope with the Believers if there's other episodes of Babylon 5.
Indeed. Oh, that's going to be a fun one, isn't it? But anyway, that's a problem for another day.
It is, that's true.
Finally, we finish, as we always do, with the legend that is the Pie Man.
Purry!
Lord Purry of Pieminster.
Nice.
Hello, Orgs. Purry here to talk about Turnabout Intruder. This usually comes under the list of one of my least favourite episodes. If I'm honest, I didn't dislike it as much this time round. I'm not going to say I liked it, because I didn't. I did discuss this at one point with someone online, and I said, there's definitely worse episodes, and indeed, the generally well-renowned bad episodes of Season 3, your Ways to Eden and your Spock's Brains, I would rather watch either of them than Turnabout Intruder. Now, that said, I think there's something good here. The problem is, it's all stunk out with this horrific stench of sexism that's going through it. Now, you could do a reading that our doctor here who takes over Kirk's body is specifically driven insane and that she hated herself for being a woman. The script, does it support it? That's debatable. Because it otherwise seems to be almost that Starfleet doesn't let women be captains, which is a what now? I mean, the Romulans do. The Romulans being a more equal opportunities employer than Starfleet, there's a thing. And so because she could never be a captain and her insane jealousy, she hated Kirk and wanted to take him over, but, because he's strong and men are strong and women are weak, and you could argue that that's just her point of view, but the script does nothing to have the other characters deny it. I think a line saying, it's not that they don't let women be starship captains, just that you weren't suited to being a starship captain, would have definitely taken away the horrific stench of misogyny that permeates throughout this episode. And it's a shame because there are some quite good bits. Not Kirk's overacting. Kirk, yes, he does act completely different, but that shouldn't be. He should be. When under the control of or I can't remember the doctor's name. He shouldn't be. He shouldn't be obviously different. I think it should be something which they could have done a bit more as a mystery in have they been switched over. Of course, the script doesn't support that at all, or at least make it less blindingly obvious for the crew. Now, that said, there are some bits I liked in this. I liked once Spock had mind melded him saying, yeah, I now know that's Kirk. And the bits in the trial, I think particularly one of the bits I loved was as Kirk under control gets more unhinged, the bit with Scotty talking to McCoy and saying, I can't be sure, I can't be sure of this, but I think if we said no to calling Spock a mutineer, what would happen then? And I thought that was actually a really good scene between James Doohan and DeForest Kelley. I thought that was actually quite decent. The problem is that for the most part, particularly the security staff look dim as hell. I mean, Starfleet security has got a bad reputation for a reason, but I guess we'll still follow him regardless. I did like the scene where Sulu and Chekhov discussed it. And again, that's probably one of the upshots of this episode, was a lot of the rest of the crew got stuff to do. I actually wish Nichelle Nichols had been in this one, because there was even stuff for the Not Uhura to do, and I think that would have probably been more effective with Nichelle Nichols' role. But really, like I say, I think I can't criticise the actors who put their role into a bit of a sowsier of a script. Well, I can criticise Shatner, actually. His overacting is comedically bad at times. And they try to do kind of a tragic thing at the end as well with the other Doctor who loved her all this time. They did kind of that weird stuff. But yeah, just I think it's not interesting enough. There's some good performances, but it's not interesting enough to get past the obvious smell of misogyny that permeates the episode. So rather a weak ending to a series, but I suppose unlike just about every other series, they did not know this was going to be the end. So while Season 3 is bad, as people make out, I'll always say there's good stuff in Season 3. There are good episodes, Thole and Webb. There's fun episodes, Spock's Brain. But yes, the quality has taken a major dip. And as you've said before, a lot of the actors are looking tired. They seem to like the going off with everyone looking a bit sad as an ending. And yeah, there's just some bloody weird stuff in this, and not in the fun weird. So not a great episode at all. So all that remains me to say is do keep up the good work. I always look forward to the podcast, and I hope for the return of the next one when we're back for the animated series, and that's going to have some fun with us. But until that time, bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.
I was going to interject there where you said, oh, you can't criticise the acting, and I'm nearly like, what the fuck? And then you go,
well, except for Shatner. Yeah. That called for a subtle performance from Shatner, and we were never going to get that, were we? So what a surprise. That stunk the room out as well. Yes, the smell of misogyny is the episode title, I think, this week. Yes. Good point about the Romulan captain, although, of course, she was undone by her feelings for a man, wasn't she, unfortunately? Oh. But, yeah. Wow. So thank you to everybody who's fed back over the course of these 3 seasons of the original series. Particular thanks if you managed to make it all the way through. I think it is. You feel like you ought to be handing out badges at this point.
Yep.
Endurance badges when it comes to season 3, most definitely.
Yeah.
I did mention I was going to sort of revisit the episodes and just sort of score up which ones were worth watching. So if you're not doing a complete rewatch, and I really wouldn't suggest you do with season 3, what the episodes you want to watch? Well, there are 2 that I scored 5 out of 5. Only 2. The Enterprise incident, surprise, surprise, lots of spaceships, and really good performances, and Nimoy on the top of his game. And Kirk doing something interesting in that one as well. And likewise, the Tholian Web, which really does benefit from Kirk being written out for quite a bit of it for being dead. We both love those. When it comes to bubbling under, sort of ones that you might consider. Day of the Dove was mostly good. Particularly the ending was really a corker where they were all laughing to defeat the yet another all-powerful alien. Wink of an Eye, which is the one where Kirk is... the aliens are moving really fast and Kirk really gets worn out. Yeah. But that was surprisingly good. I mean, it's a hokey concept, but it actually worked quite well. That Which Survives, which has got the purple lady stalking the crew, that was quite good. Whom Gods Destroy, I don't think you'd place in Bubbling Under. You weren't so impressed with that one because there was only one woman in it. She got blown up.
Yep.
But I liked it. I particularly liked the guy who's playing Garth of Izar. I thought that was quite an impressive performance. So, and I love that the ending to that is actually, rather than him being killed, when he gets redeemed at the end. That's nice. The Cloudminders we liked.
Yep. Well... The problem is that where you're talking about these bubbling unders, some of them, they're only very specifically bubbling under for season 3, and they really wouldn't get a look in season 1 or 2. That's the problem.
But I think, not an unreasonable episode of Star Trek to watch. I think is probably the definition of a season 3 bubbling under, as opposed to one that's going to make your blood pressure boil. And All Our Yesterdays we enjoyed recently as well.
Yes,
so maybe end your season with that, I think would be far better.
Yeah, no, All Our Yesterdays I did enjoy.
Yes. Mr. A to Z running through the portal.
TOS, yeah. No, that was good. Some of the ones I didn't like, it's usually things like sexism or just how stupid are you that you can think that it's okay to run a society like this, and how and it annoys me when Starfleet is overlooking something that egregious.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not so much, oh, I don't like this because of the acting, which you sometimes get, or because of the sexism. It's actually much more, no, you can't treat people like this, and I genuinely object to something that seems to say that in our so-called utopian future we're all right having societies like this as part of our federation.
Yes, it's utopian for the 1960s. That does not make it particularly utopian for now, I'm afraid.
Well, and it wasn't really a utopia for the 1960s.
It was a 1960s idea of a utopia, but that's
for a
not...
certain class of people
exactly.
only.
Well, exactly, yeah.
So not for normal people.
Yeah. The original series manages to be a utopian vision, but at other times the 1960s very much creeps in, and it isn't.
It isn't, yeah.
It's the problem. But my bottom line is, it is worth a rewatch from time to time, just to see where it all came from. I much prefer watching Next Generation, even more prefer watching Deep Space Nine, hence we're rewatching again, not that long after we last rewatched it. But it'll be a lot longer before I go back to originals. But it's perhaps worth doing from time to time, just to remind yourself where this has come from, how far we've come. Without the original series, there would be no Lower Decks.
No,
it's hard to think about.
But
yeah.
Gene Roddenberry had a really good idea, but it needed other people to execute it well.
Exactly.
Rather like George Lucas and Star Wars.
Well, arguably, yes.
Because, I mean, he hasn't had much involvement with Andor, and that's
none
amazing.
at all. He was long left by the time Andor was
But if
with.
he hadn't created the original universe,
there would have been no Andor indeed.
Exactly. So I get that. I get why people like Gene Roddenberry on a certain level.
Anyway, looking forward to the future. We've mentioned several times, on Wednesday the 4th of June we'll be covering the animated series Beyond the Farthest Star, which I watched earlier today and thoroughly enjoyed. Spoilers, but I really want to sell you this to you.
Yeah.
And it's miles away from Turnabout Intruder, even though it involves some of the same characters and some of the same actors, but it's amazing. Well, not amazing, that's probably overselling it, but it's still, well, compared to Turnabout Intruder, it is amazing, yes. Yeah. It feels much more like Star Trek should be.
Yeah.
And on the 12th, Babylog 5 begins with The Gathering.
Yep.
Ooh, how well will that have aged? We shall find out.
Well, it is different, isn't it, to what goes forward. And so you have to bear that in mind.
Yep.
But I still like it. I can remember... Because the thing is, for me, and this isn't a spoiler, for me, the pilot of a show only has to do enough to make you want to watch the first episode of the proper show.
Yeah, and ideally they'll have improved some things by the first
But
episode
by the
of the
time
proper
they
show.
go, yeah, so there should be differences.
Which is very much the case of Babylon 5.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, you think back to the pilot of the original series, there's two of them for a
yes,
start.
The first one is overly long and not enough happens. Yeah, and the second one is okay. It's certainly more reflective of the series as it became, but yeah.
But neither of them, for me, fail because there's enough there, particularly at the time, there was nothing like that at all. There's enough there to make you go, I want to see where this goes. And that's all a pilot has to do.
Indeed.
And I just think it's kind of important to set expectations. This is a pilot.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That you shouldn't be asking too much of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But for a pilot, it's good because as far as I'm concerned, it's like Ron Seal. It does what it says on the tin. Just to date me in terms of adverts.
And worth making the point that Babylog 5 will be over on the Borgcast Galactica feed, which is a separate feed. If you've not subscribed to it before, you obviously need to subscribe to that one. Just Google Borgcast Galactica and we come up, thankfully, still as the first one. Nobody was going to steal that name, let's face it. But anyway, and there's all sorts of other joys on that, like
Galactica 1980.
Yes, that's the worst of it. I think.
Oh god,
Ulysses 31. And we also covered the original Galactica. We covered the BSG version of Galactica with its ups and downs. Buck Rogers with mostly its downs, particularly season 2. So yes, it's as patchy as our other podcast, I guess, but hopefully we have some fun along the way. Until we catch you next time, take care, cheery bye.
Bye.
The Star Trek theme was written by Alexander Courage, and here was arranged and performed by Drew Barker.
The artwork was created by Andy Palastides.
All music referenced is for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended.
Find our website at borgcast.libsyn.com.
We have a Facebook group which you're welcome to join.
Send emails or MP3s to borgcast@gmail.com. Find us on Blue Sky at broadcastammo.bsky.social.
And I'm at revorg.bsky.social.
Shut it down!